They step into the biggest shows with the biggest names. And sometimes they get written on or off in a moment's notice. It's time to find out all the dramatic details of what it's like to be a guest star. With your host, Pete Ferriero.
Welcome to Guest Star. This is super exciting. I'm talking with Mike Starr. I mean, when I talk about guest star and your roles in movies, you've been in so many things. Like I went through, I watched a whole bunch of stuff to catch myself up, but I've seen so much of it that I was familiar with some of your lines and some of the things that you did and all that stuff. But anyway, it's exciting to have you here. We're just talking a little bit about Zoom, but I was going to say it's interesting too.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say with Zoom, like you would never really be able to, like, I'm sure you guys are all over the place now, right? In terms of the country and whatnot, your friends and whatnot. So there's this way where everybody can connect in different cities and states through this thing. It's pretty incredible.
Most of these guys, actually, no, you're right. Two of them are out in California, nothing to do with show business. And 3 or 4, there's Queens, Long Island, Connecticut,
Where are you about these days?
I'm in Orange County, California, because that's my latest incarnation. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. So wherever I am. The great story, one of the great stories about my life is that, and it's not about me, is that I had met my wife in 1973. Some friends of mine conned me into doing a summer stock theater, a musical. And I wound up doing 2 summers. My wife was playing flute, right?
Yeah.
2 years later, we're married by a Zen master. 3 kids, and 11 years later, my wife got into med school. And she's like this, she's the opposite of me, quiet, humble, scented, phenomenal. And she's now a pediatric cardiothoracic surgeon and also specializes in this thing called ECMO, which keeps the child alive, and she's just from another planet. She runs out in the middle, and she's really like some old school country doctor. I don't know, with amazing compassion and ability. But reason I'm saying that is we've lived in Chicago. We've lived in, we started Queens, where I lived, right? Got into med school. My friend Jack McGee, you might have interviewed, actor, was a fireman actor at the time, says, come up to Pelham Bay. We go to the Bronx. My kids there's a whole different adventure in life. We went a little north, Pelham, near New Rochelle.
Okay, yeah.
So, and the reason I'm sorry I had to tell you all this.
No, I don't mind.
She did a residency at Columbia Pres. In fact, Dr. Oz was one of her mentors who I knew as Mehmet. And I did a film for his wife, Lisa, and he was really gave, if you think that there weren't many women doing that from other people have told me heart surgery, but then she fell in love with pediatric heart surgery. So we did a year in Seattle. She did a fellowship, and my youngest daughter was still in school, so she went with us. Then Joanne, my wife, knew that she looked around, and not that there were everyone, there's so many jobs in that world. It's a very narrow specialty. Sorry, I got to get this out of the way so you know where I live, because people say, "Oh, you moved to Hollywood." Just got to let that fall off on the moron meter. But I'm sorry, but
yes.
People say, "Oh, you married a heart surgeon. Oh, you were smart." Anyway, you must be really smart. Anyway, sorry if that's the voice I hear when people talk to me.
Oh, so I hear that same voice all the time. Yeah.
You got it? Okay, cool.
Well,
so anyway,
I moved from Jersey to LA, and my wife got a job, not heart surgery, but something else. And all my buddies back in Jersey give me the same thing. I even took a picture by the Hollywood sign recently, like a headshot. You know what I mean? So just to rub it in them. You know what I mean?
Well, speaking of Jersey, I'm about to finish the Genesis. So 2 of my favorite places at the time in the country were Chicago and San Francisco. And there were jobs in Chicago, and a whole different world blossomed for me. I had worked in Chicago a number of times. I mean, Uncle Buck was 89 and then did all these things in the mid 90s and late 90s. And there's a whole world there. So much now that my oldest daughter, who teaches now grammar school in Chicago, and her husband's a jazz musician and a teacher on the South Side. And we have a grandson, Theo, with them. And now my son stayed in Chicago. It's kind of like after 9/11, we were in Chicago. Everybody said, no, we want to come out and be there in one place. Things that happen.
Yeah.
So So my son is in the burbs, and his wife and him worked out there, and he works for Underwriter Laboratories, this electric safety thing, and all these things. But I have my oldest granddaughter Katie and my grandson Michael there. So amazing, and they're in Chicago. Now in New Jersey, we have in Westfield, if you know what that is.
Yeah,
my youngest daughter Nicole, her husband Eve. And I got my 3 granddaughters. I have to get this all out of the way because if they watch this and I didn't mention any of them, so it's Madeline, Charlotte, and Allie, So I kind of bounce around, and I'm grateful when I get work different places. So finally, my wife got this big position in Newark, and we were living first in Bloomfield, if you know where that is.
Yeah.
And then Maplewood, and everything was great. No 08 hit. And one of the first places to get hit was, I think Lehman Brothers was the benefactor of the program, and the entire pediatrics program went. And my wife was out about 2 years. She has volunteered. She's taken me to some outrageous places, but she's volunteered in Uganda, Central America. When she was in Jersey, there was a program, I think, with the Rotary Club Alliance. They used to go to the Dominican, and she volunteered down there. And now there was this senior resident when Joanne was at Columbia Pres that Rick Gates is this brilliant guy, and he brought her out. I guess from what they tell me, she doesn't tell me much because she doesn't talk about herself.
Yeah.
They all tell me, brought out for the ECMO program. So now we're at the Children's Hospital of Orange County because, and that's where I'm in Tustin now, and it's a different world, it's, and I have no complaints about anything. I'm always been like nomads and always been ready for the, whatever. It's an adventure. Hey, wow, let's do it.
Okay, but in fairness, Mike, you're from the Queens. You know the food. You know what's there.
Yeah,
it's not like that out here.
No.
We're missing a couple of shops.
I searched. I found some places, but it's funny. My friend Sal, I did a series, Hardball in '94. We had really top talent. It was just timing and everything. But Joe Rogan and I became friends on that,
Oh,
and,
amazing. Yeah.
He every now and then, God bless him, he gives me street cred with the young people and my nephews and everything, because he'll say something really cool about me. And,
exactly.
And as a person, and I say, hey, thank you, Joe, but the food, it's a whole different story. But I had the stage manager of that show who had done an AD, whatever we would call it, my friend Sal, who simultaneously seemed to grow up in Brooklyn and out here. He'll point me in the right direction, and he'll even send me what he does on Sunday nights, cook for the family. But you search for that. There's some certain types of food that now really you can really get, especially in Orange County of all places. People, the reason I went through all that is because immediately, and I'm sorry, you have to rein me in, and I won't talk any more family. And usually I don't talk personal things, but I try to keep the family out, but it's all positive.
Exactly, man. I mean, this is what we're talking about these days. You know what I mean?
Okay, exactly. And it's been interesting, going through this and being isolated a lot of times. And it's a lot of great things have come out of it, and doing different things and doing remote stuff like this. But you say Orange County, the old view of Orange County, which, some exist, but a certain type of background of people, and it's getting, where people say, oh, you're with all the old whatever,
Yes.
And you say, okay, there's different things that exist here, but there's a lot of diversity now. And one thing, I've had people who were New Yorkers ask me, do you know where I could get dim sum of this and that? And there's like a couple of really outrageous places here. So there's a big now growing Chinese community and Taiwanese community, because people let me know, oh no, I'm from Taiwan, I'm not Chinese, but there's, different styles. And there have been here places that people didn't know about when I worked with people of all different backgrounds, is outrageous places you can go to. And there's all different, there's a big, Persian and Middle Eastern and So you find things. I have a friend, Hassan, has a great Lebanese place, a Middle Eastern place up in North Hollywood. You find things, you know.
You do.
Yeah, and you're amazed at things you find. So no, I know you have that. Hey, I don't only have that New York. So, oh, you know, there's not New York or New
Chicago
Jersey.
too, though.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, man, there's so much good food in Chicago. You know what I mean?
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I have chefs. I used to say, if you want to get around in Chicago with anything, sports, anything, know the chefs. And
that's true.
Yeah, and there's Chicago really, and talk about having different types. But you find them here. You know, there's more grown communities, and Sal will point me to an Italian place, and then I cracked up, and a friend of mine found a place where they sent me. My friend's daughter sent me matzo ball soup and
there's a website called Goldbelly, and they
that's what we do. Yeah.
I mean, you get everything from Chicago, from New York. Goldbelly is where it's at. You know what I mean? I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah. Talking to a doctor about it, you know, and I said, "Have you ever heard Goldbelly?" He said, "Are you kidding me?" Because he was from Long Island.
Yeah.
And we started talking, and our friend Jesse would send us you know, because my wife would like lox, bagels, this and that, and
yes,
I'm not a big lox guy, I confess, but yeah, there's all sorts. If you find it, I mean, LA. More and more, and of course, in the last 20, 25 years, has become a big place for.
You can find it. You can find it if you're looking for it. You can find it here in LA. It takes some things take a minute, but you can find it. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I've yapped enough, but I just wanted to be clear that when I say Orange County, either that or my wife says, "Oh, whoa."
Mike Starr finally went Hollywood.
Yes. Oh God. I had a nice person. I did a favor for a film, Miss Maria, and we did this film, did it in New Jersey, and it started getting some ground, and it was called Offstage Elements. Really good people in it, and interesting idea, and we did it. And it had a following, you know. So kind. She puts me on this. Now she knows me. I mean, you know, I met her through friends, you know, and really nice person. She's gone out on her own, writing, producing. And she's was a nurse in the, I don't know, trauma or whatever, ER, whatever, but really nice person. And they really treated me well and brought me back. I played a record producer from Jersey or whatever it was I was playing in. But it's so funny. She put me on this interview, whatever website. Oh, you know, because now you have, you know, podcasts, this and that. So I get on it and she goes, and we have Hollywood actor Mike Starr. And I went, "You et tu, Brute?" I said, you. I said that, and I later on said to her, I said, "Please never call me. What are you talking about? Well, you're out there." I said, "I'm an hour from Hollywood. I'm not in the." This wasn't a showbiz move, me coming out here. And what's funny, what was nice, I heard a podcast the other day. My daughter sent me that I did an episode of The Office, you know.
I want to ask you about that. It's on nonstop.
I can't wait. Oh yeah. So the Office ladies, I think it's called, and they said all these nice things about me. They didn't have all the, you know, whatever the information. They said 2 kids, that's fine. You know, this and that.
Right.
This was before all the kids were born, I guess, when I did the show, you know, before I had grandchildren. And they did this really nice thing. And what'd they say? Oh, they said I was one of the holdouts. That was the running joke. I wouldn't leave New York. And everybody, you know, oh, there's money, series. But I wanted, my wife was in med school there. We moved to the Bronx because she was in a school in Westchester, New York Med, and then Columbia Press. Now, when I started getting work, I would go back. I get on planes like it was subways, but I was able to bring the kids gradually to each thing, you know, throughout her residency. And even Joanne flew out one time. I was in, where the heck was I, in England and this and that, and I would bring the kids. So I was known as the holdout. All the guys, in fact, it was a running joke that I kept sending people out to LA. Go to LA, go to LA. My friend John Capodici said, Mike Starr is sending all these New Yorkers out here. And He's the only guy in New York getting the roles, whatever. He'd say he's sending them out, and they're taking our job. Well, it was a running joke. And when anyone ever says to me, "You're Hollywood" or "You're this and that," I said, "Oh, God, help me." So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, let's go back to the beginning. I always start here. Like, where did the acting bug start with you? How did that come into your life?
Boy, that's a great question. Watching watching TV, because you want to do this and that. And I was in people would ask me, say, "Oh, what was it like growing up with the Goodfellas?" No. I was in a blue collar, working class background, really multiple diverse. But I was talking to my friends yesterday about this. You, being half Irish, you were brought up there, and it's not mean. It's just that, especially with immigrants, it's that mentality of get a civil service job. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying, but it was. I wasn't exactly. There weren't a bunch of people becoming actors, especially in my age group. But James Russo came from the same area. Once in a while, we see each other. But he's a few years younger than me, and he's a very specific and great talent, But he's got a great energy. But I started, it's interesting, you'd watch TV, this and that. My era grew up on westerns and I guess war movies, which is why later on I'll tell you why I said the Commandant. Martin Scorsese cracked up when I said that in Goodfellas. But I had a nice thing happen. Joe Papp, I don't know if you know who Joe Papp is, and he's mentioned sometimes, even was mentioned in this Tick, Tick, Boom. He started the public theater, Shakespeare in the Park and all that. And what he did was he brought traveling groups, but I mean names in the theater and film and TV through the neighborhoods to the projects. Now, again, I don't want to say, and I was standing there and doing, it was like I said, working class, mixed neighborhood, but they came around and I saw, I don't know if you know Blazing Saddles, Cleavon Little, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cleavon Little was big off Broadway. He was doing this thing, Scuba Doo, all this stuff. And he did kind of, they called it a rock Hamlet. And he walked through the audience and he would say to be and not to be, and he'd go, "Do you ever read any Shakespeare?" He talked to the people in the audience, but it had such an effect on me. And I remember talking to him at the Good Humor Truck ice cream, and he gave me advice. I was about 15 or 16. And then James Earl Jones, I got to work with him. I wrote a paper in college on him. James Earl Jones did plays, and Roscoe Lee Brown, if you know who that is. And oh God, I got to thank him. I got to thank both of them. I never got to thank Cleavon Little. But something happened seeing the theater, And in high school, I had something happen when I was a kid. They thought I had some form of polyrheumatic fever. Can you believe it? I was a really active kid, playing ball, and it wouldn't clear me to play high school football. And George Collin, I went to one of these powers thinking it would clear up. I eventually was a walk-on later on at Hofstra, which is a funny story. But George Collin used to say, "You can't play sports? Be the class clown," or something like he used to do.
Sure.
Well, I used to fool around and do impersonations of the teachers and some people. And I did they asked me to do, I don't know if even, and then they knew who Jack Benny was, but I did these skits and bits, and it's like Family Guy says, you make fun of the other school or something, everyone goes, "Yeah,"
right. Yeah.
But I did these bits, and I started we started a drama club, tried to do that. And I wound up being somewhat active in the neighborhood, thanks to this man, Mr. Cummins, who was from Barbados and Bed-Stuy, and asked me. I ran programs. And it sounds, I'm really giving you a lot here, but what happened, I want to answer it fairly, all the people.
Of course.
So I thought I'd be a poli-sci major at Hofstra, right? Now, my brother was playing with the Jets at the time. I don't know if the Taxi Squad, I don't know if you know Bo Starr, Goodfellas' at dad. People don't know he was playing pro football. Well, he saw me in a play. This girls' school, this Catholic girls' school had me, this guy said, "Listen," I was, I think, a sophomore. He said, "You're really funny. I got a small part you'd be great in." So I did it. My brother came to see me with his girlfriend at the time, and he said, "This is what you're going to do." I said, "No, no, no. I do it for laughs. I'm going to be a congressman or something, whatever." I thought I'd be.
Right.
And he said, "No, no, you got what's called charisma." I never heard. He said, "You're going to do this." Now, this is my brother being a stage mother, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My father never repressed anything. It's funny. His parents were immigrants from Poland, you know. But and my mother was quite a performer. You know, the neighborhood queen. So she was like Jimmy Cagney's mother, but it's not something that was encouraged, you know.
I got you. Yeah.
You know, I mean, my mother constantly gave me, I'm trying to write this screenplay, constantly would give me the civil service paper. I think Larry David, they do it on Seinfeld sometimes, you know, the Bloomingdale's, you know, but constantly, you know, you get a pension, you get this, and there's nothing wrong. That's great.
It just wasn't your path. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
But when you know that at such a young age, that's so important. You know what I mean? But
well, here's what happened. I go out to football practice at the Jets to see my brother, and my dad took me, very quiet, classy guy, you know. And, you know, we were used to meeting the New York Jets, 1967, 68, around there. Hey, great. Well, my brother ambushed me because he was very multi-talented person and different people liked him. And one of the heads of the drama department came, Carol Saker, and there was this actress who was like my top actress in the country, because Hofstra had a great drama program, undergrad drama program, and they won the American College Theater Festival when I was a freshman. Well, he sits me down with them, and they start pitching me about the drama department. So it's like, we have something called the Drama Corps, where you specialize on that, you major. And I'm just nodding, listening. I said, maybe I'll do plays. And and they're really pitching this thing to me. And I'm going, yeah, like I'll be with 50 drama men. Yeah, sure, I'll take it. But I was polite and respectful. I said, thank you, thank you. And they're telling me all about this great program and people working together and people from performing arts. And they had recruited from around the area. Some is, yeah, like Maryland. And mostly, you know, you had New Yorkers and whatnot. And I said, great. So they leave. My brother goes, so what'd you think? I said, what? What did I think about what? You know, he goes, well, what'd you think? Is that what you like? I said, Drama Corps? What are you, nuts? He said, I'm going to sit around. And years later, saying, oh, you're a drama major. What do? You sit around and whack dummies all day and hit around and talk to yourself, you know? But, so I said, what? He goes, hey, schmuck. They have no one like you. No one comes from our background. He said, and I was a big guy, varying in weights at different times, but he goes, you know, no one talks like they don't have anyone like you. And if you're you take a minimum amount of credits. If you're any good, they're going to give you a scholarship. And I went, where do I sign?
Right.
And still to this day, like I'll see my friend coaches me, my friend Brian Rose, Captain Cranky, who's a professor at Adelphi and had a great career in commercials and classical, all types of theater. He coaches me in dialects or getting rid of New York dialect. And he's just had a book come out on Shakespeare. That these relationships have stuck. It was the greatest move I could ever make. And I did the Mike Starr 5-year plan. I took minimum amount of credits and I wound up getting, so my brother's friend, his mom worked in scholarship. I wound up getting 4 more years of school. And my 5th year, things started to click in more. I started being able to do musical leads and this and that. And that's what happened to me as far as that. And it was, it was crazy. I went off those times, the late 60s. Maybe people are doing it now, I don't know. But you go in and I don't know, you're looking for Buddha or Jesus or whatever.
Right,
and I kind of dropped out in a way. But my friend Tom Bray pushed me. He said, no, you're going to do this. Just do one show. And I kind of went all over the place. And I came back to society, as it were, thanks to the Zen master. And okay, now my feet are on the ground. What do we do? And we had a child. I remember my first job, you know, the so-called straight jobs, I was working at a health spa, Jack LaLanne's.
Okay, yeah.
Which is morphed into LA Fitness. And one day I was saying, okay, I'm making $100 a week. And there was nice people and everybody, someone was going to be something, who was a musician, who was football. And I said, I'd really like to try one more shot now that I'm cleared to play football. That was another crazy story. I was with this team for a year, but my wife supported me in everything. It was crazy. And what an assortment of characters and friends have come through the doors in my life. That she called my friends Mike's Asylum, very positively.
I love that.
And people really admire her, you know, because again, she's humble. Sometimes I was surgeon, real ego, how much money does she make? And not what you think. But anyway, but then my 10% of the recognition I get, or 20%, my favorite types of recognition is being seen as Dr. Starr's husband.
Amazing.
I've had like people in their 40s, 30s, 20s, or mothers say, oh, she said, I'd be at an airport. Are you Dr. Starr's husband? You know,
that must be a nice little twist for you, because you're waiting for, weren't you in Goodfellas? Weren't you?
Yeah.
You know?
And it's also, if you've had 3 people at an airport come up to you, like this guy went, dude, you're so cool. Why? What are you doing in the OC, man? And I was at John Wayne Airport, and all of a sudden I explain, and then this young lady, Mexican American, I believe, she comes up to me and she says, "You're Dr. Starr? See that's my mother over there, and that's my 4-year-old. She saved, you know." And I put my wife on the phone. She's like low key with that. Oh yeah, and she knows everybody. She remembered. I've been told by other surgeons that I wouldn't know people. I mean, back in Chicago would say, she gets involved with the families and all these things, and she's really phenomenal. But anyway, when I got out of school, you know, one day I said to myself, I was working at Jackson. It was very interesting because I worked down near the World Trade Center, the Woolworth building, and we had all like really interesting characters from the city, whether union, this and that. And one day I said to myself, because people say, oh, you got to do this. I said, you know, I had a scholarship. I'm supposed to be pretty good at this. How do I make money? I said to myself, and I had a friend, Gary Epstein, who's an agent now, but there were people in your drama department. Like I give advice to people who are drama majors, film majors, whatever. I say, what you really got to do is connect with your alumni. I mean, you think of the people that came out of NYU, or people, and you think of some of the people you could look up that came out of Hofstra. It's phenomenal. And, you know, that's how I started getting, it's a lot of great stories. Believe it or not, Matt Snell of the Jets and Art Shamsky of the Mets was an agent that I got my first commercial. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I got my first commercials through him and my friend Gary Epstein. And I started doing showcases in theater. And there were times I was going to quit. And I even had my father-in-law actually got a job for me, Long Lane Reform School, something. It was a high-end place. I mean, I tried to get jobs at some outrageous places. And because I was a drama major, they would take the Spofford Youth House. I mean, there was some intense places, and I couldn't get a job, but he finally got this great job for me. And just then I started getting commercials.
Yeah.
You know,
well, perfect though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you about some of your roles.
By the way,
yeah.
I'm sorry. By the way, I should tell you, I mean, Dan Lauria got me my first big play that I started getting some. Vesper's Eve.
Dan Lauria is from was the dad in the Wonder Years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were on something again, and he said to me, "Boy, you'd be great as Dutch Schultz in this play," and it opened me up. People saw me, and I always say the running jokes. I said Dan Lauria got me in the New York theater because he ran a theater, his own theater in New York before, and he goes, "Yeah, and no one's ever forgiven me for it." It was a running joke. But we had a friend, Steve Kaplan, that had the Manhattan Punchline Theater eventually, and my friend Brian started things there. And he was, again, at Hofstra, and he put me in this play, The Alchemist, which is a 16th century, you know, but I was working at Jack, but I only had this one scene playing the fundamentalist preacher, Reverend Ananias. Yeah, that was my breakthrough role.
Right.
But it was hysterical because at Jack LaLanne's, there was this massage therapist from Italy. His son was like 15. There was the Woolworth building had all these tunnels and everything. And they would sneak me out so I could go to rehearsal and perform in this showcase. It was so funny. I had instructors cover me. Okay, Mike, they need you in the front office. All of a sudden, this back door would be open.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that. So,
talk to me about The Natural. Is that the first big movie that you're in that you think like, wow, this is like, I mean, I know you were in a lot of other things, but
no, that's all right. No, I'm
yeah.
trying to think. No, because it was like the third or fourth one. Bushido Blade, which is a funny story, 78 in Japan, thanks to my sports contacts, but that was a great experience. But I'm trying to, I just want to think a second, because I would say, I mean, it was the first, like, wow.
That's what I mean. It's an epic movie. Everybody's talking about this movie.
Yes.
This is,
so I
did. We're still talking about it. They show it on MLB. That, it's still one of those. It's for baseball. It's like this iconic movie, right? So,
yes. So what happened to me was I did a day or two on films. I think I had done some TV shows, but I was doing a lot of theater. And there was a whole thing that went awry. I mean, this off-Broadway show went to Broadway, died in one night, this and that. But I was getting attention and reviews. And I'm trying to think, I guess I was doing a lot of commercials. New York then, Law and Order wasn't even out. New York was really dry. And it's really funny. When I was coming out to do commercial, you're talking about 1977, 70. It was still an era where the detectives, the cops, iron workers, everybody was 50.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So strange. I remember there was a great film and they said, you're just too young to be a detective. I said, my brother Johnny wasn't a detective. I think he was retired by the time he was 36.
Right.
I was 36. I wound up getting a small part, and it was, I think it was where I first met John Turturro, but it was, oh God, there were great people. And I'm sorry, I got to do a scene with a penguin, Five Corners. And everyone said, you're perfect for the detective. Wonderful actor, played it. But I would say, so it's, let me tell you how I got the natural. I'm sorry, got to ram you, but I don't have any normal stories. Even Dumb and Dumber, how I got that. I think I did everything not to get it.
I want to hear about Dumb and Dumber. I want to hear about that. I want to hear about Uncle
But the
Buck.
natural?
Yeah, the natural, yeah.
Now I got the natural. This is absurd. I am not a baseball player. I wouldn't even tell professional football's a football player.
Are you a baseball fan?
Oh, fanatic. I'm old enough to have been a New York Giants baseball fan, which they got wrong in this interview. My cousin was a Dodger. I used to run across the roof. We'd watch games. But when I was a kid, they left town, and I became and I don't have this. Oh, I hate the Yankees. But all you had to root for was other teams. Well,
I'm a Mets fan, so sorry. Yeah,
exactly. No, so don't be sorry to me. I just no. I'm saying when you start knowing people. I don't like the word hate, but I understand what they mean.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah.
I listen to FAN all the time. Mike,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I would talk to him, and he had, in hockey games. I am a nut for it, but I know, like, somebody hit him saying, I just hate those guys. I always hated that guy. Yeah, sure. So what I was going to say is all we had to root for was the All-Star game, which was great in those days. Me and Gary Barbagallo flipped the drummer in our band, who I reunite with. And the only guy that had any musical ability was, my cousin Paulie had charisma, at least. And I tried to play the bass. I was an okay singer, evidently. But my friend Ricky Heim is now a classical music conductor at the Northport Symphony. He was our lead guitarist at 15. So we all laugh about it. I named us the Bathtub Ring. But I don't know how I got. So the Mets. So anyway, no, I'm a huge baseball fan. And what's funny, why I say that, I don't hate that, when you start knowing people personally. Like when I lived in Chicago, it was really what they said, small town, big city. And my friend, iconic guy, Donnie Cruz, my friend Luigi, got the Italian chef. They would bring me. I got to know so many Cubs, like, and Ryan Dempsey, people. And it was so weird because I was such a big Met fan, and I had met Brendan Rush when I did Ed. Todd Zeal, Leslie, who was on Leslie Boone, who was on the show, connected. I think she was like a cousin that people would say with Todd Zeal, really with Todd Zeal. And we would have these great seats, and we'd all go, and we'd have the luxury boxes and everything. I was at the 69 Mets. Let me put it that way. When you said sorry to me, I went, uh-oh. No, I'm just saying, I was on the field. I think my brother Jimmy was coming home from Vietnam. My brother John was a cop in New York. And my brother Bill was still trying to hang with the Jets, and didn't work for the Super Bowl for a lot of crazy reasons. But I was one of those idiots. I remember the three of us went, me, Gary Barbagal, my cousin Paulie Coast, and they had 2 tickets in one. To this day, I don't know how we got them.
Right.
But they said, listen, us two will stay together because you'll get along. You'll talk to everybody in the upper deck and they'll know.
Yeah.
And all I remember is having this leather jacket on, an Avis bumper sticker they gave out. We try harder. My brother, that's right, was in Montreal playing in the Canadian League by then. I had a Montreal Expos hat. And I guess the statute of limitations is over. Someone handed me a joint and someone handed me a champagne bottle. And I was one of the idiots running down on the field, ripping up the grass.
That's amazing.
And if you look at the footage, Flip and Paulie are on the footage.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
My story.
Yeah. So how did you get the natural then? So what?
All right. So what happened is this Broadway show, it was a blessing as it turned out. Elliot Gould was brought in to replace Harris Lasker. We were an off-Broadway hit. It was a fun show. It was called Guys in the Truck. And we were like in one little place. Me and my friend Gary Clark, who you look up and you should interview him sometime. He's amazing. I played a crazy, crazy announcer, color guy. And it was really ahead of its time, the producer. And with Harris and Gary and all, we helped rewrite it. The guy was really a good guy. And David Black wanted it to go to Broadway. We kept saying, no, it works on intimate. It's about a terrible game and a broken down suit, and all of a sudden all hell broke loose, and it's a great game. And the whole thing, the guy, it was based on actual people. My character, my friend Rob, he was I think based on Vince Scully in a lot of ways, but it was based on all these people. And there was a famous sports producer, iconic actually, and I can't think of his name, who I think had a gambling problem. So that entered into the story. All this happened, and then we put the announcer's booth, 2 people on top. We had the tech staff on the bottom, and then we went out in the audience. My friend Gary played this guy interview. He plays and he had played with the Saints. So what I'm trying to say is, we spent 6 weeks. I remember I was out doing Denver rep. I came out in the best shape of my life, training with stuntmen. And I'm one of those guys that goes up and down, in and out, or starts watching kids and doesn't realize maybe spends too much time in and out places and eating. And I was there, and for 6 weeks we watched this thing go downhill. They put Elliot, great guy, David Black, great guy, and they just kept fighting. And he fired them, and we lasted one night. But I got to bring my parents to Saudis. Okay,
it was amazing.
82, right? Now here I am. I got to have them see me on Broadway and this and that, and I'm grateful for all of that. And during the time, I kept saying to my friend Gary, because he had been a catcher in college as well. I know he played in high school, but he was a linebacker at Arizona. And I kept saying, shouldn't I work out? He said, no, they're going to see people on this natural. And Lou DiGiamo was a friend, and he was the casting director. So me, like an idiot, I didn't train. I didn't do anything. People said, you can use Jacqueline's. I said, oh yeah, I'll get to it. I get the kids, and the kids were like early age. My wife was just going back, I think, to Queens College. And now here I am, and the show closes. And there's a character, Tommy Cooper, that all the UK, the Brits people know. He wore a fez, and I a lot of times look like him. And you could look him up. He was a character, right? And he wore a fez, and I got to sneak a fez on stage. And actually, when I did The Bodyguard, Mick Jackson was a British director, right? Famous British director. And he gave me an engraved fez that I still have because he got a kick out of it. I was do Tommy Cooper for him. And finally, what happened was I said, I get a call. They want to see you up at Baker's Field, which is north of Columbia, where Columbia played. It's actually near the Polo Grounds. It's up in Coogan's Bluff, I think. It's up in the high 200s in Manhattan. And I said, holy shit, I can't play baseball with it. I said, yeah, they're going to bring you to the tryouts. And I said, well, and there was a guy, Joe Austin, that lived to his 90s that had this diverse group. And he had some people went to the majors. And my friend Joey Fitz, God rest soul, was with the Mets with the video, and he had been a AAA pitcher. And I think I tried to learn how to play baseball after I got the job in a couple of weeks, right? So anyway, I said, what am I going to do? So there's a director named Barry Levinson we know very well. He had just done that. Yeah. I said, well, I go on the theory, which I still go, I may not get this job, but Barry Levinson's he's gonna know who I am. So let me go out and play around and try to stay off the field. So you had actors there who were like dressed, with the right uniform. Hey, on the hop, and they play. Hey, there we go, and they're trying to play. Well, some actors like Barry Kibble was good ball player. There were some guys in college that wound up getting it, but some of them weren't even actors that got it. And you had a lot of ex-baseball players, and it wasn't going to happen unless he cast guys with great faces. So I don't know any of this, and I'm standing clowning around. Fortuitously, Sonny Grasso, who became a big producer, but he was the other guy in the French Connection, right? The police, right? He had this is so crazy. Well, I happen to know, if you see The Natural, you'll see Doc Dizzy. Hey, it's Mike Trainer, Irish-American guy, cop, this and that. We had a mutual crazy friend that my brother worked with that we knew, that I actually used the guy's walk in Uncle Buck. He was this cop who was always wrecked in the neighborhood bar, right? And he and I started exchanging stories. He goes, I met you on cruising. Cruising was my first job. My friend Cockney Smitty, God rest his soul, had to even show me. I didn't know how to drive even. This is what I want to say. I have so few skills, and I've had to drive on so many jobs.
Everything I think you're driving. You're right, always the driver. Yeah.
So this guy, Mickey Trainer, comes up to me, and he sees me on the set. And he goes, I was the cop. I didn't even drive. I said, I'm the worst driver. I told them I couldn't. And I had all these intricate things to do, and stop and start in camera, and freaking was going nuts, and it was crazy. We had demonstrators cruising. They thought it was going to cause all these issues. And I got that from being in Vespers Eve when DeJamo saw me. So anyway, Mickey comes up to me. My trainer goes, aren't you the guy I met that night? Your brother's on the job. And we start talking. I said, yeah, what are you doing here? I came out here because I know baseball. Lou asked me to look at some of the people. I said, well, you can tell I can't play. And anyway, and he and I became great friends on the Natural. But we started telling funny stories. And finally, Levinson says, can I see you out on the field? I said, oh, no. Are you serious? My shoulder. I said, I told my wife she wouldn't let me take the Bute. I don't even know how to say it. Butadiolaz and Butazolid, and it's horse tranquilizer. These weight I used to take. And I said, I would have taken, all right, I'll try. So I get on first base. No, before first base, I said, well, let me try my knuckleball. Now, you have to understand, I'm wearing a fez.
Right.
I mean, absurd. I mean, like
you look ridiculous. Yeah,
totally absurd.
Right.
God knows what kind of pants I was wearing. But on top of that, I don't know how I found that. I might have went to the store. In the 50s and 60s, they had this stuff called Brill Cream, which George Costanza references. I greased up my hair. I took all the grease, rubbed it on the ball when people weren't looking, and I went to throw this knuckleball. The thing did absolutely nothing. And I don't know if I can use the F word here.
Go for it. Yeah.
I turned to Barry Levinson and said, well, I guess I don't have a fucking knuckleball, do I? Right? And I just laughed. I said, sorry about that. So he says, let's see on first base. And I come in really close. And we had a guy who was with the Yankees batting practice, Tony Ferriero, who became a sports technical advisor, one of the guys. And Tony said, you're coming in too deep. Because I knew I couldn't reach home. So I took it and I moved back, I launched it. I got off the field. I sat with Mickey. He said, you want to go to, I know, a great bar around here, Coogan's Bluff or what? No, it was another place they all hung out. Let's you and me and Lou go out. And Lou DeJamo walked up and he said, well, you didn't lie to me. You can't play baseball. I said, I told you. So we're sitting there and laughing. About a week later, I find out they had the final tryouts, right? And Lou DeJamo is standing there and Barry Levinson says, where's that guy, that big guy, that funny guy? He goes, he can't play baseball. I said, I don't care.
Right.
I got cast. Me and Mickey got cast because, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to impress Barry and tell him he's fine. I gave up. I didn't try. I sat and laughed with Mike, and we went back to the bar with Lou DeJamo, some bar up there on Vinegar Hill, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Famous bar. My brother knew it. And my brother Jimmy knew it. And we laughed. And I said, well, it was a nice try. I can't even pay the rent now. I just was at a Broadway show that closed. I get this call. I couldn't believe it. I got up there, and Mark Johnson, the producer, I did a FedEx commercial that was banned. See, that's another thing. I would get on these commercials that were controversial and we'd be banned for being offensive.
Right.
We were offensive to the U.S. mail, whatever we did.
Of course.
Guy,
right.
Yeah. There was a guy, Pat Kelly, used to do that style from Sid. I go, I'm looking, looking for it, the bag. And they said, nah, throw it off. But anyway, I get up there, and these guys have been there a week. And I got to be really good friends. There was a guy who was with the St. Louis Cardinals, and we lost him at a young age. And we became best friends. Kenny Grisano, my wife, got very involved with his family and him, and I got involved with his family, and we stayed friends. And I lost him about the age of 40, but he had the greatest sense of humor. We bonded over the honeymooners, right? And
I love that. I mean, that's the show. I mean, yeah.
And he wound up being the pitcher on the natural at the end. He wound up being the guy. And the only time you see me on the field, on the film, is I'm warming him up. And I said, Kenny, take it easy on me. And I'm in my Knights jacket, warming him up in the last inning of the game. So that was my claim to fame. I love
it, man.
So I get up there, and I'm out and Tony Ferriero says, okay, Starr, we're going to get you in the shape we're going to get you. And I wasn't in the best shape. We're going to teach you, we're going to get you going. And he gives me a bag. And he says, just shag these fly balls, these or whatever, go get them. Now, they got guys like Joe Charbonneau, who was a real character, 1971 rookie year. He's hitting these line drives, and these people are hitting line drives, and I'm like ducking, and I got this bag. And this fella, Eddie Seip, by the AAA med, almost made it, and he was a wild man, interesting guy, very philosophical, winds up becoming a Catholic priest, Staten Island, great guy. He was just always searching, but he was this handsome, wonderful guy. And he says, what are you doing? What did they got you doing? I said, Tony, no, you don't do that. So he said, that's like scrubs. That's insulting. And Tony didn't mean it to be insulting. He just knew I wasn't going to be catching it. He said, no, you don't do that. And there was another guy that said, get this. No, Eddie said, come over here, talk to me. I love you. I've seen you in shows, I've seen you in a play and this. And we start talking. And all of a sudden, Barry Levinson, I'm like ducking line drives, and Barry Levinson yells out, Mike Starr, get the hell off the field. What are you, trying to get hurt? I said, okay. I come out, and I learned so much, which helped me in Goodfellas. Like Barry Levinson, who's just the greatest. And I wish it would work when things happen. I wound up watching baseball with him. Baltimore won that year. He was just, you almost felt he was trying out jokes out of me. He'd share things with me that you'd almost hear styles come out later on. I don't mean in a bad way. He liked my humor. He said, listen, now this is interesting. I want to tell you, so I hope I'm not boring you.
No, I love all this, man. Yeah.
Okay, so good. So he said to me, and I do this with class, he said, now listen, because so many people bullshit people, or you're going to be this, and, especially real people get on, hey, I'll just talk like this and everybody will love me and whatever. Sure, okay, great, whatever. I'll say, hey, I was this and I was on that job or whatever, He said, now there's going to be a lot of stars on this movie. It's not even fully cast yet. He said, I didn't bring you up here to play baseball. He said, I thought you were so funny that day. I overheard you and Mike Trainer. They brought Mike Trainer in, and they combined two characters, Doc and Dizzy, and they made him Doc Dizzy. And he had ad libs. He and I, according to the crew and some famous camera people, said, I can't believe they would cut out they were quoting us constantly. And he did a monologue with Wilford Brimley that did make the whole thing about talking about Gunga Din or something. And
right.
Mike Trainer was a walking trivia master, and movies, and he talked like this, and I never liked that guy. Brian Dunlap, he always played a rat,
Yeah.
So, and they would do things, and Wilford Brimley, who taught me a lot about ad-libbing, and he was very close to DeVal, and he taught me a lot about camera awareness and things, and just what's going to get in something. And there's a lot, and they don't come any better than Mr. Farnsworth, Richard Farnsworth, who was a classic stuntman and wound up being this great actor, the two guys. And they would ad-lib stuff, and no, we could never come near them. They'd ad-lib singing. And Robert Redford was the greatest. Okay, yeah. I have a great story about that too. So anyway, Barry says to me, you're only going to be on for about you'll be on it maybe 10 seconds to 30 seconds. So when you ad lib, I'm going to ask you to do things bing, bing, you know, just every now and then. I want you to throw in stuff. Not everything made it, but some really cool stuff made it. And I said, that's cool. He said, I want you to think about that. So now we got to think, what are we going to justify you sitting on the bench, whatever. So my brother told me, tell him you're a guy, because I had gained the weight back from Denver. He says, tell him you're a guy that's eating his way out of the league. We always had players like that in different sports who just said, good. He goes, yeah, I like that. So I found spots to eat that not all of it made it. There was some funny things. And I had this running thing. Not all of it made it, where I'd say, you know, I got this thing in my stomach. I don't know. I had some bit there, you know, and which the crew would always do for me and some of the actors. But he said to me, I want you to think in those terms. And it was so honest, because he said, there's going to be, you know, I mean, you think about it, you see that movie, the Star Power it was, and the people that were in it and the money that was behind it. So he told me the truth. So I knew how to get things done, you know. And I mean, he and Martin Scorsese, you know, the free reign they gave me and the freedom, I learned so much, you know. And I got to do things here and there, and then fun ad libs, or people would ask me to do things and make up even monologues sometimes. But it was like such a great experience. Now here we are. I've just been in a show that closed in one night. Now I'm standing with all these people. And actually, Mark Johnson at the end of it said, boy, it's like you learned how to play baseball in this, because every day I would play with you. And
right,
I did.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, all right, we all played Little League, but like I said, I never met
long time. Little League's a long time ago. You know what I mean?
And especially I got sick at 9 or 10. I used to have to sneak out and play on some church team or a neighborhood team, you know, but I didn't have like all the people, Coach, okay, you put the glove on the ground and it comes up and this and that. And I actually was a wannabe catcher and got to be in these great fast pitch leagues in Central Park, but not the greatest hitter, but just friends, you know. And what would be a great thing when you'd run into, one of my favorite recognitions when people talk, there could be, ex-street cops, detectives, alleged organized crime people like that, sports people. My favorite thing is when any of them, or veterans, whatever, whenever them said, you were real, you know, and I don't claim to be anything like that, you know, knowing anything, but when they tell you, you played it like the guy, you know. And I've been told.
I wanted to say, you know, and I'll ask you some more things, but I want, you know, that is something about your work that I definitely identify with. There's an authenticity in the characters.
Great. I appreciate that.
I mean, you become this character. Even in Dumb and Dumber, you know what I mean? As silly as that film is, and it's an amazing film, but there's a believability that you are, you know. I love the scene in Dumb and Dumber where when it first happens, when you guys are in the airport and Jim Carrey takes the briefcase, you know what I mean? Your reaction to all of that is from a place of authenticity. You know what I mean? And there's a light, there's a beautiful light that comes out of your work, Mike. Like, it's just, when you're on screen, you take it in a way that is building the moment and the scene that is just, it's just beautiful.
Wow.
It's something that you're able to do.
The God's ears. No, that means a lot to me, because it's funny when I finally hooked up with the Farrelly brothers. I was going to all the wrong buildings in LA.
Tell me about this. You
I
said,
will. So,
you
but
said before.
basically,
yeah.
The ending of the story. But I'll start it over. The ending of the story is that Peter said to me, you know, Jim insisted on having an actor who played this and can be very real, even though it's a comedy. I mean, of course, I went, but people do get that when they have. But you know, and we went for the comedy, but that means a lot, because Jim and the Farrelly brothers really wanted this character to come from a real place. Now, there's some dynamite comedians that are super actors, obviously, and especially people that come out of Second City or whatever. But and then that's not stand-up comic, but there's also stand-up, obviously, that are great. So I didn't want to say, oh, they don't want a comedian, but he didn't want someone, from what they told me, that was known for stand-up, and that's why he's in the movie. It's, you know, our guys. You see a lot of these movies. Hey, all our guys. Hey, we're all, you know, which is cool. which is good because I don't have that attitude that everyone had to, go to the Royal Dramatic Arts or whatever, whatever works, as it were. So, but saying that individually to me, it's not a besmirching anyone else. They felt that I had played real people in movies already and would be believable, as a mob guy. And I tried to play it from that standpoint. I didn't try to go, whoa.
No, there's none of that. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's great that you're not a stand-up comedian. You know what I mean? Like you are, because that it would have just made it so hokey. I genuinely believe that you and Karen Duffy, you know what I mean, are trying to
Rhode Island.
Yeah,
Rhode Island,
exactly. And that this incident happened. You know what I mean? Like, that's why that movie works so well. That's why you care so much about those characters, is because that hunt that you're initially on with them. What was it like though for you? Well, I want to ask you though, you said that you almost didn't, you did everything not to get that part. I'm curious how you almost screwed that up. And then also just working with those two guys and you being the serious actor in between those.
Jeff Daniels is one of my idols. I mean, Carrie,
exactly.
At the time, comedy idol, I mean, look what he's done. So many great films. But Jeff and I, Jeff was very quiet on the set, but I'm looking at him transform himself as this outrageous character, and we would have great talks, but I would do anything to, like, Jim was nonstop, blah, 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 and fun. And right. I hung out with him and those great stories with him and watched hockey with him. And he told me about his life and interesting. And if I saw Jeff being really quiet or like this and that, I'll be really bonded. I start talking to the camera people in gibberish. I'd say, you got me in a cowboy? You got me on a 60? And some people appreciate it, some people don't when I ask them questions, but I say, I did kind of a takeoff because I knew California stunt coordinators, they would say, now listen, I want you to, and I'd start telling the guy, you set your camera right here and my guy will come and we'll do the gag up this way and I'll send the truck up that way and my other guy will be on a 45 degree on the post. And I'm doing all this. I said, are you getting my eyes and you get my full face? And Jeff would be like this, like he was sleeping, like he was such a professional, but he'd be sitting there until action, right? And Jim would be going bob, 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 and it all worked. And they were wonderful to be. Jeff finally, I kept talking nonsense. I said, well, I need a depth of field here and, get a 45 or 60. And
I love it.
And I started throwing all, you got a leak on this. What kind of, I would take your wrap down on the and I'm just talking nonsense. And the crew loved it. Jeff finally turned and goes, what the fuck are you talking about? Shut the fuck up. He started laughing so hard. And he was writing a play. And we went into his trailer he wanted me, it was a real funny play. And he had a theater, Purple Rose character, but he wanted me to give him some stuntman talk, stunt coordinator talk. You got to, Hollywood stunt, California classic talk that I impersonate people all the time, different things, and they get a kick out of it. So so he was great like that. He was wonderful. But what happened was I was brought out, I told you I was a holdout, and it'd be so funny. Here I am, my wif's in med school and then a resident and, and I don't think people know the financial story behind that. So now she's a resident. And I would be playing softball in the park, trying to get jobs in New York. But here comes this movie, Goodfellas, and then Mad Dog and Glory, which I was very proud of, which was one of my best experiences as well. And then The Bodyguard.
I mean, it's like hit, boom, boom, boom,
and I'm
boom.
Mr. New York.
That run, And you even did something
with
Mick Jagger. I think you did a movie with Mick Jagger.
That's a funny story. Yeah, I was cut out free Jack for the most part. I was supposed to meet Mick. Yeah, that was a real. I might as well tell that story. But anyway, so I was still doing. Oh God, I got on Crazy Ways. I got on this thing that was going to be a great scene. And I meet Blake Edwards, and all I want to do is be in this play that he's going to do. But all of a sudden, I wind up, he's doing a remake of with Roberto Benigni on Pink Panther. I would get these crazy jobs just when I'm like, am I going to get the rent on this or the tuition? and I'd get these jobs that would come out of nowhere. So now it's 94, and I had this agent that's starting to move up in the world at the time and doesn't exist anymore. But and he was moving up in LA, and he said, "Listen, you got to start coming out here." I said, "Oh, okay." Well, we got a Disney deal, and they pitched a few shows to me. And Joe Rogan had been discovered. I believe Gene Blight. Gene Blight was a great guy. He was a real legitimate, honorable person, and he was a theater guy. But they would scout people all the time. I think in the Montreal Festival. So anyway, I'm sitting and listening to the different stories, and they said they had this baseball idea. And originally it was single camera. It was brilliant. It was just, I mean, the idea was ahead of its time. Kevin and Jeff, I'm trying to think, Jeff Martin and Kevin, really interesting writers. And I don't want to go off on it. It wound up, the powers that be switched it to like 3 cameras, 4 cameras or whatever. And they were pushing them back. And Joe Rogan and I stepped in where we had the balls to do well. You see how Joe is. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's him. People, I don't get into who's political or cultural things.
Right.
When people either want to praise him to me or complain about him, I said, all I can tell you, he is an honest, good-hearted, sincere guy. Whatever I said, I said that, I mean, he was like that then, you know what I mean? It's not like he all of a sudden found I'll do this. No, he is to me, a pure being. I mean, there's people that get upset at him. There's people, I'm not getting into any opinions or anything. I'm not saying that. Yeah. I'm just saying, when humans, does that make sense?
It does make a lot of sense what you're saying. The person, and that's just who Joe Rogan is. He wasn't trying to be necessarily political, but he was just being Joe Rogan. Right?
Yeah, and he doesn't, and he's not intentionally hurt people. I'll tell you, I've watched him really have patience with some real assholes. It's great, but he is a vibrant guy, and we had really dynamite people. Bruce Greenwood, Dan Florek, and it was during the baseball strike, and then Sandy Grushow was the head of Fox. This was his baby, and he got fired. I mean, whatever could go wrong on that did, but we were starting to do an interesting show. But originally, like I said, they were trying to do this kind of offbeat single camera thing, and we came back, and all of a sudden, whoa, and doing stuff like that. But it was called Hardball, and it was very clever. And we were next door to Seinfeld, and a couple of the writers used to tell me how much they loved it. And they come over and talk to me, and they loved the show, and they thought it would go. And we lasted, I think, 8 episodes, but we had followed The Simpsons and held our audience, and Fox wasn't Fox yet, as far as shows. So it didn't happen. So anyway, we get there, we get the job. I get the job, and wow. So they bring me out there, and I'm on the set, and they do these publicity photos. And that another guy said to everyone, let's do these photos that will never be seen, and you see them sometimes, So I started having everyone posing like, we're funny guys. And I said, hey, 2 funny guys, 3 funny guys. Hey, there's a funny gal. I was making fun of the whole thing. And I was right. They never saw the light of day. And me and Joe and everyone were in baseball uniforms, and Dan was the manager. And me and Bruce was like the old school guys. And again, I was the catcher that was ready to retire. And it was we did some stuff. It was just the greatest job. We'd go to Anaheim Stadium, the Angels, and we did a couple of things there. And they had interesting guest stars of sports and acting. But anyway, so I'm standing in the publicity thing. Now, mind you, a few weeks before, I'm out visiting my brother, who lived in the Burbank Rancho area, and we're driving around, and I didn't read the trades. He goes, look at this. He goes, Jim Carrey to get $7 million. And I had heard that New Line or something said after Ace Ventura bombs, he'll be happy to get whatever to give him. So anyway, I go, wow, that's great. And I remember when my wife was in med school, me and the kids would watch Living Color. And, a lot of times she'd be busy on that night, and that and Gary Shandling show and this and that, we'd watch it. And had a so-called nanny. I don't want to say we needed someone that was legal to, if either of us wasn't there, and my oldest was getting older. Huh?
Like a helper. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had some interesting ones. Some were artists. Actually, one of them turned me on to Mac Ronick and The Simpsons. This artist, Julie from Spokane, she was great. And there I am. Sam McMurray gets me on Tracy Ullman when I'm out there doing a play, and there I am, and Dan Castellaneta comes up to me and says, "Sorry, I'm late." I said, "What do I give a shit?" I did a couple of shows, and Tracy Ullman, I'd never seen anyone work as hard as her. Actually, George Cullen was one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. When me and Stephen Root worked with him with Kevin Smith, and very serious work and just great. But Dan goes, "Did you ever hear of Matt Groening?" I said, she gave me this book, and they're in the Village Voice every week, he goes, "The Simpsons." He goes, yeah. He goes, "We're doing a 5-minute show. I hope it works." And I said, "Oh, that's great. I hope it works." Now that shows how old I am.
Good luck.
1987, I'm doing a play with Malcolm McDowell out there, and Swoozie Kurtz, and so many cool people, Vince Cavelli, so many cool people, and it bombed. It was a hit in New York in a smaller theater, one of those things. We're at this high-end theater to tape it, and I start getting all this work, and it was weird for me because, again, that's 1987. I'm like used to like grabbing whatever I could in New York. I'm going on Paramount and all these places for auditions and getting these jobs. It was like a kid in a candy store. I said, "Really? There was like 2 jobs in New York. There's like 20 jobs on a set, on a lot, Yeah. So anyway, back to, I'm on the set of Hardball. They're doing, we're doing the pilot. They're taking pictures of us, and finally, I get this call about this. There was an agent working there, a woman. There's this movie, Dumb and Dumber, and you've been requested to meet them as this mob guy, or whatever. And I said, "Really?" I said, "I didn't even have a car yet." I had a license, but I didn't have a car. And there was a guy, a big country guy, Chris Browning, you see in some things. And Chris goes, "You need a ride somewhere?" I said, "Santa Monica." And we were in Studio City, I think, Burbank. We were on the other side. "I'll take you, I said, "Really? Here's the address." I wouldn't know how to the 405, the 101, the
right.
all this
There's no
stuff.
Google Maps, none of that shit.
Yeah.
Just... right.
Your Thomas guy? No. So he takes me, and I don't know if that was because one time he took me for one time there was such heavy traffic, and I said, "Geez, there must be an accident." And he didn't mean it this way. I think it was him that said it, but it was like some old punchline to a joke. "Geez, I hope so." And I said, "What?" He goes, "No, I didn't mean that. I mean, like, there's got to be something. This can't be like this all the time." I said, "Oh, God, all right." So I get out there, and I go to the wrong building. I'm going everywhere. I'm knocking. Wow, what are you talking about? Who knew what Dumb and Dumber was? I go to the wrong building, and then I find the right building, and I go to the wrong room. All right, every way I can possibly lose this job, I'm doing it.
Where is this Mike Starr?
Right, so now I start walking around these dark halls, and as I remember, it was a dark room, and there's Peter and Bobby Farrelly. "Mike Starr!" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm really sorry. I just don't know. I'm from Queens. I'm sorry to use that old excuse. I'm a New Yorker." We start talking, and they don't come any better than the Farrelly brothers.
Right.
They did. And their loyalty to their friends and child, I mean, they're just so great, and family people and they start talking to me, and they said, "We loved you in Mad Dog and Glory." I said, "You don't know what that makes me feel like, because we really avoided cliches, and it was one of the best scripts ever." And some people felt it was sold wrong, some actors, and it was just one of the best experiences, because I actually got to do something I wanted to do and not play a cliche. And Richard Price, one of the greatest writers on earth. And The Bodyguard, I didn't realize how much, sometimes I did, but how much I learned. Whitney was a blessing, but Kevin Costner, how much I learned. And I made friends on that with Bill Cobbs and Gary Kemp. But Costner, you could see how much he knew about filmmaking and how much he shared with me on the set. I mean, talking to me. And he was just so good to me. I mean, we weren't chums or buddies. I don't mean to claim that.
Sure.
And, we didn't, "Hey, what do you think of this?" But no, he was just so good. And he did invite me on some really cool events and this and that. But I don't know how I got off on that, but I was talking to the Farrelly. Oh, yeah. So I had done stuff, But they talked about that, and the character was like from another planet. It was nothing near Joe Mental. But I started reading. I said, "Yeah, great," and they don't pay a fortune for guys who have just come out, which is fine. I mean, to me, it was great. We're living in the Bronx. My wife's a fourth-year resident. I got kids, and I went back and forth. We would film in Utah and Colorado. They had a blue-collar working-class mentality. That's the Farrelly brothers were like that on the set, and there's so many in-jokes they had and Friends.
I imagine. Yeah.
You like Dumb and Dumber? You're a fan of Dumb and Dumber?
I love it, man. Yeah, it's great.
There's a scene, Cam Neely plays Seabass. I told everyone I was acting. Yeah. Hall of Fame. There's a scene where we're in the diner, and Jim throws the thing over, remember?
Yes.
Well, there's, and he says, I'll have the soup of the day, whatever, soup du jour, I'll have that, and Jeff and him doing all that shit. Well, and I didn't mean shit like funny, the waitress is sitting there reading a book. Well, the waitress was the Farrelly's sister.
Oh, I got that. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and I didn't either. And, they introduced me, but they said, Mike, check out the book. This is a story. Well, hopefully I have it right on broadcast, but I believe she might have come through a tough divorce before that. It's possible. That was the word. I don't know. But they have her reading at the end of the shot when, Seabass runs, everyone's, when they go and they run away.
Yeah.
Well, they have a shot of her reading a book, and it's a fake cover, and it says, "Of course you're angry." That's their humor. And
I love that.
Care. It's like Larry David not caring if everybody gets every bit,
Did anybody bust you about the hot pepper thing when, the scene with the hot peppers and all that stuff? I mean, I'm sure you ate. Well, your friends, because
constantly there's people giving me a hot sauce in places,
right.
Ask me to sign it, and that's there's stuff like that. That was licorice, but I think a real pepper got in one time, and Jeff got one by accident. Those things, that was a real place we were at, and those things were a real deal. And I don't know if it was a mistake or a prank, but I think at one point he got it, which was not funny. But yeah, people like, what they bust me when you mentioned friends or family. I'm a pain in the ass. I can be a pain in the ass right about certain things bother me. I don't know if it came from the childhood hallucinations or rheumatic fever. I don't know. But there's things I can't stand, or the nuns poking, or there's things that bother me, or sounds, or whistling. It's crazy. And if you tell the wrong people, they'll just keep doing it to you. So,
of course, right.
Or they'll say, "Oh, you don't like that?" Just don't be around anyone, coke people who talk, whatever. Those haven't been around anyone in years, but if I see it, I run away. But as far as people, going, "Hey, I got to tell you something," or making mindless whistling sounds that are off key. I don't know why. So the point being that I have not only my friends and relatives and family and kids of their fans get the biggest kick out of the most annoying sound thing, because said you didn't have to act. And it's not like I got annoyed at Jim or Jeff, but it was like,
but it's also
those
working.
Things.
It's
and
working.
They kept poking.
Yes, it works on another level, right? Like,
yes, exactly. I didn't have to act, as it were. It's like when the knife in The Bodyguard goes in the wall. That was shot on a crossbow on a thin wire, and there was a great special effects guy who I trusted. But when you could see it if it wasn't taut, but then when it went in an instant, obviously. And I looked at that. I didn't have to act,